Excelsior!
If you didn't see my really long video ranking and reviewing Marvel movies, that's basically what this is, but considerably shorter and with a lot more Stan Lee. I'm making this at the same time as that massive video as a way of honoring the late great creator, so I'm going to be as quick as I can here and get to the rankings so I have a little less to edit. Instead of a tier list like I did with the Marvel films, I'm just going to go from worst to best, looking at every major Marvel movie released to theaters that were featured in that other video, pulling out the ones that don't have a Stan Lee cameo in them, and then ranking the rest from worst to best based on how good I felt the cameo itself was. And again, these are purely for Marvel movies, so his cameos in things like The Princess Bride 2, Mallrats, or Teen Titans Go to the movies don't count. Sound good? Alright, let's get this going then. Here is every Stan Lee cameo in Marvel movies ranked worst to best. Number 40, Let There Be Carnage. Stan Lee just appears on a magazine cover. It's quick and more meant as a tribute to the late creator, but is otherwise uninteresting. I honestly missed it the first couple of times I watched it, and it's kind of sad that this ends up essentially being the last Stan Lee cameo so far, which makes it, in my opinion, a bad cameo. Number 39, X-Men. Stan Lee works at, or at least is standing next to a hot dog vendor on the beach where Senator Kelly emerges from the water, looking bewildered along with the rest of the beach going public. He's not even the focus of the shot and can be easily missed, making for a bad cameo. Number 38, Guardians of the Galaxy. Stan Lee is talking with a younger woman out of earshot and is berated by Rocket for being an old perv. That's not a very nice thing to do to the lady or to Stan, so bad cameo. Number 37, Thor: The Dark World. Stan Lee wants Eric to give him his shoe back. It's not a very funny joke in a movie that tries desperately to make funny jokes and fails, and I'm done talking about the Dark World forever now. Number 36, X-Men: The Last Stand. While Charles and Eric visit a young Jean Grey early in the movie, she uses her abilities to levitate cars and such outside, including changing the gravity of the water from the hose that Stan is using to water his yard. It's a bit more involved than the first X-Men cameo, so it gets points for that at least, but is otherwise nothing too special. Number 35, Deadpool 2. Stan Lee appears briefly as graffiti art on the side of a building during the scene where the X-Force jumps out of the plane. In the PG-13 re-release Once Upon a Deadpool, they added in the letters RIP because it came out after his death. I considered this less of a cameo if only because he's, not actually there, but it still sort of counts and ended up being a nice little sentiment with the re-release in the end. Number 34, Black Panther. Stan Lee takes all of T'Challa's poker chips. I mean, at least they won't go to waste, I guess. That's really about it for this one. Number 33, Daredevil. Stan Lee plays a man who's so absorbed in reading his newspaper that he almost walks into a busy street, only to be stopped by the young Daredevil. As young Matt walks away, Stan looks around in disbelief, which is, cute. Overall, this is just a harmless little gag. Number 32, The Incredible Hulk. Stan Lee drinks some soda that was infected by Bruce's blood and he presumably dies. It's a little silly, so it's better than most of the ones that came before it, but it's still mean to unalive Stan Lee, so it loses points for that. Number 31, Spider-Man. Stan Lee pulls a little girl out of the way of some falling debris during the Green Goblin fight. Stan getting to be the hero is always nice, and here is no different, but otherwise it's kinda basic. Number 30, Spider-Man 2. Stan Lee does basically the exact same thing as in Spider-Man 1, but this time while Spider-Man's fighting Doc Ock, so I don't know, it's just slightly better. You see him a little bit better, that's about it. Number 29, Captain America: Civil War. Stan Lee appears as a FedEx postman and calls Tony by the wrong name. It would be higher ranked, but the movie ruins the joke by having Rhodey hammer it in by repeating it a bunch, and it just is not fun. Number 28, Captain America: The First Avenger. Stan Lee plays a general who wonders why Steve isn't taller when another man comes out at an award ceremony meant for Steve. It's kinda simple and silly, nothing else to it. Number 27, Iron Man 3. Stan Lee is an overly enthusiastic judge at a beauty pageant. Considering the previous two Iron Man movies have Tony mistaking him for someone else, I was actually a bit disappointed that this wasn't another one of those, but oh well. Number 26, Iron Man. Tony mistakes Stan Lee for Hugh Hefner. It's honestly just a little silly, but it should be noted that the girls surrounding Stan are credited as Stan's girls, which is even funnier. Number 24, Iron Man 2. Tony once again mistakes Stan Lee for someone else, but this time it's Larry King. I think this one's just a bit funnier personally, just because it's a continuation of the previous joke, so it gets slightly higher marks than the previous one, but the lack of the inclusion of Stan's girls really made me go back and forth with this one. Number 24, Fantastic Four. Stan Lee plays a postman who delivers mail to the Baxter Building, appearing for the first time as one of the characters he created named Willie Lumpkin. This one gets points alone for the fact that he's not just playing some guy, but actually a character that Stan Lee has made in Marvel canon, even if the scene is mostly uninteresting and very brief. Number 23, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Stan Lee appears at Peter and Gwen's graduation, somehow being the only person to see Peter swing in a Spider-Man before he hops into line for the ceremony. Stan then remarks, "I think I know that guy." Given the size of the audience, I find it hard to believe no one else saw him, but otherwise it's a cute little scene. Number 22, Venom. Stan Lee is just some guy walking his dog who tells Eddie Brock and Venom to not give up on their relationship with Anne. He specifically says that both of you shouldn't give up, implying he knows about Venom, and Venom asks Eddie who is this guy while he tries to contemplate whether or not to eat Stan's dog. It's a cute little interaction, but it is also the last time Stan would cameo before his passing, which makes this one a little sad. Number 21, Spider-Man Homecoming. Stan Lee yells at Spider-Man before flirting with his neighbor. I wish this one was a bit better considering Spider-Man is Stan Lee's most well-known creation, but I guess it works alright. Number 20, Hulk. Stan Lee and Lou Ferrigno walk out of the lab where Bruce works dressed as security guards, talking about how they need to beef up security. This one gets points for the simple fact that it's a double cameo of Stan walking next to the original actor to portray the Hulk on the small screen. Number 19, X-Men Apocalypse. Stan Lee is shown watching the nukes being launched by Apocalypse alongside his wife Joan. This is admittedly a simple cameo, but it's the one that Stan Lee himself used to say was his personal favorite for the simple fact that he got to do it alongside his wife Joan. Number 18, Ant-Man. Stan Lee is a bartender in one of Luis's stories, smiling wide and repeating the phrase, "Yeah, crazy, stupid fine." It's a very quick cameo, but it's kind of fun. Number 17, Captain Marvel. Stan Lee is on the train reading through the script for Mallrats, a non-Marvel movie he cameoed in. Considering he cameoed in that movie as Stan Lee, creator of Marvel Comics, it's either a fun meta joke about how he created the characters whose films he keeps making cameos in, or it's a reference to how he wanted to originally be a novel writer, and that's the Stan Lee who's going to cameo in Mallrats. Either way, it's a fun little call out. This one has sort of a double cameo to it as well, in that the Marvel Studio logo at the beginning only uses footage of Stan, since this is the film that came out after his death and ends with the message, "Thank you, Stan," meaning I was crying before I saw the movie. Number 16, Avengers Endgame. One of the last Marvel movies to feature a Stan Lee cameo, it was just him and his wife Joan, digitally de-aged to how they looked in the 70s, driving past the army base shouting, "Make love, not war." The fact that it's one of his last cameos that also features his wife Joan is a touching sentiment and is an alright cameo in my book. Number 15, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Stan Lee appears as himself trying to get into Reed and Sue's wedding, but is turned away, which is a very rude thing to do to the man who gave these characters life, but is still a silly joke when he actually introduces himself as Stan Lee. Number 14, Deadpool. Stan Lee plays the announcer at a strip club, enthusiastically proclaiming, "Give it up for chastity." Considering it's an R-rated film, this feels somewhat appropriate, though I do wish we got more of a meta joke, considering it's a Deadpool movie. Number 13, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Stan Lee plays a guard for the Smithsonian in the Captain America exhibit, happening upon the exhibit where Cap's old uniform was on display sometime after Cap stole it. He comments about how he's going to get fired, and that's about it. Overall, not bad. Number 12, The Avengers. Stan Lee is seen in a series of news clips scoffing at the idea of superheroes in New York. It's kind of funny, but also very much in line with how the average American would think. I do wish that they would have gone with the deleted scene of him telling Cap to ask a girl out instead, because it would help add context to the girl's interview later, but this one was good too. Number 11, Spider-Man 3. Stan Lee stands next to Peter Parker in Times Square reading from the news ticker talking about him, and he says, "You know, I guess one person can make a difference," before saying "Nuff said" and walking off. "Nuff said" is one of Stan's other major catchphrases besides Excelsior, and this is my favorite of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man cameos. Number 10, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Stan Lee appears as a random pedestrian whose car is shrunk by the Wasp. Instead of cursing or proclaiming indifference, he makes comment about how he's paying for having fun in the 60s, which is a fun little hippie drug reference in an otherwise alright movie. Number 9, Doctor Strange. Stan Lee is on a bus laughing while reading The Doors of Perception, a book about Aldous Huxley's experience while tripping on psychedelic drugs. This one's good because Stan and the others who made Marvel Comics back in the day were accused of being on drugs, making for a bit of a cheeky reference to not only the late creator, but his experience making the comics being referenced. Number 8. Thor. Stan Lee tries to use a truck to pull Mjolnir out of the ground only to have the bed of his truck ripped out. It's a humorous little scene that, speaking as someone who lives in the Midwest, feels like I know a few too many people who would do exactly this if the movie took place in Wisconsin instead of the Arizona desert. Number 7. Thor Ragnarok. Stan Lee plays a barber on Sakaar who laughs maniacally at the chance to cut Thor's hair. Between Thor's reaction and Stan's laughter, it's just a fun little scene all around. Number 6. Amazing Spider-Man. Stan Lee plays a librarian at Midtown High wearing noise-canceling headphones while Spider-Man and the Lizard fight in the background. It's humorous to watch him be so oblivious to everything going on behind him, and just a fun little cameo in an otherwise okay movie. Number 5. No Good Deed. A short film that aired before Logan here in North America to help promote Deadpool 2, Stan Lee makes a cameo appearance telling Deadpool he has a nice suit, with Deadpool saying "Zip it Stan Lee" in response. This is the kind of meta cameo I was expecting Stan to have in the Deadpool movies, but it was instead relegated to this short film that I decided to add in because I like it. Number 4. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Stan Lee is a store clerk where Miles buys his Spider-Man kids costume he wears for a while in the movie. Having him address a conflicted Miles works well, and with the inspiring words being undercut by a joke also works in the end. Just a nice little sentiment for a cameo that came out almost a year after his untimely passing. Number 3. Avengers Age of Ultron. Stan is a World War II vet who claims if he can survive Omaha Beach, he can handle a shot of Thor's Asgardian liquor. It cuts to him being carried off as he drunkenly exclaims his personal catchphrase Excelsior. Overall, it's one of the best ones in my mind, both because it's funny and it lets Stan say his iconic phrase. Number 2. Avengers Infinity War. Stan Lee is the driver on Peter Parker's school bus, and when all the kids look out the window at Ebony Maw's spaceship, he proclaims, "What's the matter? You never seen a spaceship before?" Considering all the movies that led up to this one, it's a cheeky little joke on par with his cameo from the Avengers, but made better by the number of films since then that have featured aliens in one form or another. I also think it's fun to think that this guy and the guy from the first Avengers are the same person, so, there's that. And number 1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This one easily takes the top spot for the simple fact that it basically confirmed the fan theory that all of the cameos of Stan Lee, at least within the MCU, were the same character keeping tabs on the various events that have transpired and reporting them to the watchers. It's a cool little way to kind of connect all these desperate cameos, and while the context of this is mainly for the MCU, I like to think it extends to every other cameo as well because it makes it that much more fun. And that is that. I'm glad that Stan was able to cameo in so many movies, knowing that when he was younger, he wanted to be an actor similar to Errol Flynn. And by being able to do these cameos, it helped cement him in popular culture for all of time, outside of just having his name on a bunch of comic books. Some of the cameos might not be that great, but at the end of the day, it was still just him living his best life. Anyways, I'm gonna go and take a nap now. Having done this at the same time as the literal longest video I have made to date was exhausting, and I just need to relax. So thank you all for watching, subscribe, and follow me at the places for the things and whatnot, and I'll see you all in the next video. Enough said.